fans finally have a lead on the reason mid-2000s Hollywood boy wonder, Lil'JJ, suddenly disappeared from the screens, and their discovery will leave you stunned. From serious comedic ingenuity to big appearances on Nickelodeon, his rise to fame was the talk of the mid-2000s, yet it fizzled out just as fast, leaving mournful ashes of more questions than answers. What happened to the boy who seemed so destined for superstardom? Did he really just walk away? Or was there something more sinister going on behind the scenes? Join us as we unveil the real reason behind Lil'JJ's sudden disappearance. The meteoric rise of a young star. Hollywood has always had a track record for producing some of the best child stars anyone could ever think of. Remember Baby's Day Out with Robert and Jacob Wharton playing simultaneously as Baby Bink? Or the best Christmas movie ever, Home No No, with Macaulay Culkin playing Kevin McAllister? Lil'JJ was on the same trajectory. But just how did it all begin? October 31st, 1990, Halloween night came knocking with a trick-or-treat on the doors of the Lewis family in Little Rock, Arkansas, and they had a bundle of joy called James Charles Lewis III, Lil'JJ. Like most people, James was born with his talents. From a young age, he had the wit and cunning of 100 men in the circus. He was extremely capable of producing some of the most humorous things anyone had ever heard. This wasn't just some cute words from an innocent child that had adults laughing their heads off. He was spitting bars and wasn't at all playing fair for his age. He had the adults around him in a chokehold every time he opened his mouth. His punchlines would wreck a nerve and break the hardest nut in the room. He was just that good. His parents were immediately certain of the talent this Halloween baby had brought to the world with him, and they weren't ready to simply let it die. So they did what any ambitious parent with the love of their kind in heart would do. They put him on a path to set him up for life as early as the age of 8. Knowing that he was loved and set on a path for greatness, he knew he had to grow up and fast. He did not have that much time to be a child like every other kid. While his age group had the latest Xbox or cried their lungs out of shape for a new pair of Jordans to slide on the basketball court, the little prodigy was busy crafting materials and pieces that could make an adult forget his problems for a minute or two before life hits again.
I'm telling you right now, I tell you kids the truth.
Obviously, he had the Lewis family as his testing ground, a typical black family, where everyone is absolutely honest with you about your grind. If it's good enough, you get the applause. But if it isn't, you just might get roasted enough to focus on something different. As expected, he had everyone's ribs on toast, and that was all the motivation that his parents needed to support his dreams. But luckily, they weren't alone in the race to make him a star. But just how much did this relentlessness from his parents affect the trajectory of his career? The dial that changed everything. James was already a rib-cracking menace at home, and everyone knew it. While he got away with some jokes, there were others he didn't dare to make in the house because he knew the whopping that followed would leave him sore. A real stick and carrot situation for him. But since he could not tell some of these menacing jokes at home, he needed a new hunting ground, a place where he could almost make a pass at anyone. And all that followed was a suspension if it ever went too far. And that place was school. With that in mind, he chose to be the class clown. But in his defense, every class has one. But not many could do it at the same level as James did. He was clowning every teacher and every student in his path. No one was safe. While some teachers could not handle his jokes and got a bit sensitive, there was one person who did not care too much about it: the gym coach, Ken Bright. Ken could tell that James had everyone in the school in a chokehold every time that he opened his mouth, while most teachers would hide away from just how funny most of his comments were. Not goof old Ken. Every time James wagged his unforgiving tongue of fire, Ken, who could tell that he was wrong, couldn't really care. He just enjoyed the spectacle and laughed his head off. James had become a dilemma that needed to be solved, but no one on the school campus had any bright ideas on what to do with him, aside from Ken. So he doubled back to James's roots and spoke to his family, especially his mother, finding out if he was only such a menace at school, but also at home. As expected, he got the answer that he was looking for, and with his mother's blessings, Ken Bright, 32 at the time, chose to help James hone his talents. His solution was basic, but it made sense. If the kid was going to be a clown, give him a wig, a microphone, a stage, and a crowd to set on fire. He was either going to sink or swim, but it was most definitely worth a shot. As expected, he did not disappoint. He had the whole school's rib in his hands and fiddled with it. He soon made a name for himself on campus, becoming everyone's favorite fool. But Ken Bright believed that he could be so much more. Ergo, he decided to crank the dial up a notch and try to carve a career for this sensation, with his mother fully behind the initiative. But just how well did that go? Ken Bright and James, the dynamic duo. While the age difference between the pair was absolutely staggering, they had the same goals. Ken resigned from his job as a teacher and instead created a niche for himself as some sort of talent manager. He knew that he could be something more than a gym teacher if he could help James pursue a career. First, he taught him how to hone his skills even better, helping him to stay on topic every time he chose a material to pursue without getting distracted, showed him how to manage a stage, and helped him sharpen his delivery and timing for the punchline. James knew it, his mother did, and Ken Bright knew it too. The time had finally come for a start at national recognition. So, Ken got him to perform at the BET's talent show, Coming to the Stage. It was his first journey at a transformation that was going to make or mar him, but he had too much confidence in his abilities, the support of his family, and good old Ken. So he was not shaken at all. The year was 2003, and the United States' biggest black platform was looking earnestly for the next Chris Rock. But then they found a little lad with cornrows, a support system behind him, and a whole school rooting for him. He was no longer James. He had completed the transition to Lil'JJ. Immediately, he got on the BET stage. He was welcomed with the applause of a roaring crowd who were waiting patiently to be wowed. Although he had been on the stage at school, with Ken backstage, cheering him on and watching him stunt on everyone in that hall. However, the BET stage is a different ball game. You could either hit a home run and become a superstar overnight or strike out, and your name is suddenly on everyone's lips as the black kid who should have just stayed in school. But there was something about Lil'JJ. He was confident even in that pressure-cooked situation. He had a gift for comedy, and a crowd of adults he had never seen before was not going to stop his shine. Immediately, he opened his mouth and he set the stage on fire. They had never seen a verbal arsonist like that. He had the hall in a chokehold, and you could still hear them laughing even after he left the stage. His work was done. It wasn't long before he was named the winner of the BET Coming to the Stage champion. And everyone suddenly knew who he was. What exactly was his performance like? A menacing performance. Every little star always needs a little bit of push to get that big career break, and Lil'JJ's bet win set him up brilliantly. While other kids had been right there on the money, nailing these wonderful materials and sending the hall into a roar, there was something quite common among them all. While their materials were wonderful, they still felt a little bit like things a kid will say, and it was raps for everyone else. He had his cornrow and the baggy fit to match the style in the mid-2000s, and he had the crowd hollering with his entrance. The opening was a menace. He opened the stage, imitating the tears of a kid, telling the fans to respond with a, "What happened, JJ?" No one saw the quick interaction coming. Since surprise was here, the crowd got along with him like a house on fire. Following the response to his question, he replied with the "R. Kelly took my girlfriend's" line and had everyone's attention ever since. The material was bold, and he had no fear at all in his heart. If anyone could pull it off, it was definitely Lil'JJ. He forged on, holding a mirror to the grown folks in the audience and calling them out, almost like he was standing up for every kid in the world. He made an instance of kids being whopped by their parents, who make the excuse that they were only doing it because they loved them. He called them out and claimed it was mostly because they were mad at the time, and love had nothing to do with it. Juxtaposing the similarity in the duality of grown folk and kids, and claiming that the consequences only differed because only one was capable of meting out the punishment, while the other party could only take it without complaint, was the crux of his stand-up, and he had the room tumoring over its head. While other kids who came on to perform also had the ears of the audience, no one quite did it like him. And that was just what he needed. He knew he was going to get heavily criticized, but he went all out without holding back, without losing the audience, not even once. This level of engagement with a kid on that stage wasn't something common enough to be trivialized, and somehow the other kids in there almost knew they did not stand a chance against this microphone god. But how important was this performance to his rise in Hollywood? From BET to superstardom. Following his landslide victory in the BETs and just how much following he had gained, he had the world eating out of his palm. Hollywood immediately took to him like fish to water, and he was no slouch either. His name rang out hard and fast, and he was on the trajectory to becoming one of the biggest child stand-up comedians in Hollywood. It wasn't long before he started getting life-defining gigs, appearing on television shows and films like Beauty Shop, Yours, Mine and Ours in 2005, getting his face out there and letting everyone know he was global. But things only went up from there when he got that sweet deal with Nickelodeon, appearing on some of their biggest shows at the time, including All That and the Nickelodeon Show. The rationale behind accepting him was rather simple. He was killing it with the adults in 2003 on the BET stage when he was barely 13. Hence, it wasn't too hard to imagine what he could do on set to make kids laugh. While his brand got bigger in the United States, especially in the Black Hoods, where seeing a brother on one of the biggest stages was a huge blessing, Nickelodeon planned something even bigger for him, giving him his own show called Just Jordan in 2007, where he played the eponymous character Jordan. The hype was real, and the city of Arkansas was proud to have one of its own lighting up the television. Just Jordan was the perfect show for Lil'JJ. A depiction of his core, and just a little bit about his upbringing, was added to the plot to help him relate to the story. The series aired on Nick Teens, with a 17-year-old Lil'JJ as the star of the show. Jordan was a kid who moved from Arkansas to Los Angeles following his parents' divorce, and his family struggled, so he had to take a job in his grandfather's diner, where he earned his keep. It was a near-perfect depiction of the struggles of a black child, which included a deadbeat dad, a child working his way up to support his family, and the lit cornrows. As expected, Lil'JJ was absolutely killing it. The series was rated as one of the best teen shows in Hollywood from 2007 until 2008. It almost looked like he couldn't fail anymore, and everything he touched turned to gold. But Midas here had trouble looming, and he did not know it. By 2008, Just Jordan had ended, and he got the nastiest reality check of his life. He was a superstar, but now that Just Jordan was done, he needed something else, something to keep him relevant. But there was a bit of a problem with that. Directors of big television shows already knew who he was, a big old goof, but whether he was capable of something else or not, they weren't sure. Would anyone at all choose to risk a big show for Lil'JJ? Typecasting. The beginning of a fall. Hollywood is a super cutthroat business where new talents are churned out nearly every second. This revolving door of talents makes it super difficult for any one person to colonize a space for too long without anyone being in trouble, of being on the sidelines. Being a Nickelodeon star as a kid mostly translates to numerous things. While kids like Miley Cyrus end up a popo star, and some others ended up as reality TV hosts or action stars, some just never have the opportunity to break out of the popular niche they were known with as kids, placing some type of an embargo on their acting career and having to keep up appearances somehow to maintain relevance, and the once super bright boy wonder of Hollywood was suddenly starting to lose his light. While he was fading into the background, he kept up appearances on smaller shows like The Superhero Squad Show, Men of a Certain Age, Are We There Yet?, The Ricky Show, The Killing, and Da Jammies, while also making appearances in big music shows, including Sean Kingston's Beautiful Girls, Nelly's Stepped on My J's, and a lot more. But as much as he struggled, he just wasn't really getting anywhere. But here comes the kicker. The Just Jordan show was doing so well on the board. He was bringing in the views, and more importantly, the money. Ergo, it seemed too difficult for anyone to accept the fact that there wasn't anything more to the show, just suddenly getting cancelled out of the blue. The official reason was almost believable. as they tagged it as one of the consequences of the Writers Guild strike between 2007 and 2008. While it made sense to a point, other shows remained in the network and were unaffected by the strike, at least not affected enough to get cancelled. This bit of disparity in logic and Nickelodeon's decision to never discuss the reasons for canceling the show any further made it even more difficult and more controversial for anyone to accept. As expected, social media took up the beef, and new controversial theories began to make their way to the fore. Rumors about the Hollywood underworld made the rounds on Twitter. Now X, Facebook, and podcasters were having a time of their lives, feeding these rumors and debating the controversies. But Lil'JJ stayed silent, looking to keep his cool and avoid the testing waters of the media. He was invited to numerous podcasts and seduced to come on interviews and spill his guts to the media. Maybe someone somewhere could hear his cry for help and have his career back up and running. Suddenly, no one was willing to take a big chance on a kid everyone once thought was going to be the next big thing out of the hood. However, he didn't stay silent forever, and when he found his voice, his cryptic message was alarming. What exactly did he say? The big reveal. Many years after Just Jordan was cancelled, Lil'JJ, now going by Big JJ, found his place on Nick Cannon's Wild 'N Out, one of the biggest Afrocentric shows in Hollywood. The series is often called a black mecca for top talent. And in 2015, Nick Cannon welcomed him into the fold. Although this show gave him the biggest platform of his career since Just Jordan, many still remember it as an injustice. And recently, an old Facebook post from Lil'JJ's account was discovered. And the contents will knock you off your feet. "I ain't giving up no butt," he allegedly wrote on his page during the time of this huge tempest that rocked his career and threatened to dance on his grave. The post was cryptic and of course not intricately directed at anyone on Facebook, but it was damning proof of every rumor that was piling up about the wolves in sheep's skins and wolves in wolfskin lurking in the deep states of Hollywood politics. The post was immediately circulating over Hollywood and social media, with many demanding an explanation, willing to give up anything to get him in an interview and get direct answers on the parties that this post was coyly referring to. But Lil'JJ has played it cool repeatedly, keeping his head out of trouble but stirring controversies with just a couple of words. It's almost like a shadow war with a common enemy, but so powerful that no one dared to mention its name. The cryptic post had the world spiraling, with many people trying to finally validate Cat Williams's words. While they seemed over the top at the time, when he claimed that Hollywood wanted black men to wear dresses or have homosexual intercourse with some of the top brass in the industry, mentioning Kevin Hart, Will Smith, and Tyler Perry as willing victims. The recent discovery of Lil'JJ's post seemed to have rekindled that fire, and no one seemed able to tell what or who is true anymore. Cat Williams' theory on the Illuminati and people going up against them, suddenly getting some hate from the media, and having their career threatened, suddenly checked out. His theory seemed to answer some of the questions that the world had had for a long time about how Lil'JJ seemed to fall out of favor with every huge director across Hollywood. But as much as Cat's quotes are now making the rounds, Lil'JJ's cryptic post about not giving up is the real kicker. While a bit of ambiguity in the meanings has set up different podcasts with different meanings. For this post, there are too many who believe that he was shut down because he chose not to indulge in the rumored homosexual rite of passage in the Hollywood underworld. Whether Lil'JJ eventually comes out and discusses this, or simply watches the world lose its cool from a safe distance forever, remains to be seen. Will Lil'JJ ever come out to speak about his experiences and maybe decipher the post? Was his career really ended by bad luck, or just another victim of the rumored Hollywood underworld? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.